The 3 men were captured when they tried to cross the border with Ghana. Authorities are now continuing their search for the 2 guards who remain at large. The authorities had already arrested 11 members of the disbanded elite guards in connection with Friday's raid, during which army officials said the attackers seized Kalashnikovs and rocket launchers. We'll continue to keep you updated on that as well. Now, the trial of former LRA commander Dominic Ongwen continues at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Ongwen's lawyers, Crispus Ayena Odongo, submitted his defense Monday before a panel of 3 judges. As KTN's Solomon Serwanja reports, the senior counsel's submission was centered on the fact that Ongwen was first abducted at a tender age and should therefore be seen as a victim other than just a perpetrator.
The pre-trial of former Lord Resistance Army Commander Dominic Ongwen entered day 2 at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Prosecution led by senior trial lawyer Benjamin Gampent continued their submissions, adducing evidence pinning Ongwen to the attacks in Odeki, Lokodi and Aboki IDP camps. Using the evidence collected from the intercepted communication system between Dominic Ongwen and his former boss Joseph Kony, the prosecution argued that Ongwen personally participated in the attack in Odeki camp that left 61 people dead.
Joseph Kony asked Dominic Ongwen if he had cleaned the backside of his mother in Odek. P3 states that this was a coded question, asking Dominic Ongwen if civilians were killed. A question to which Dominic Ongwen replied, "Kichi kichi," or in English, completely over. Compelling evidence of torture comes from witness P270. She was trapped in her home by a female LRA fighter who sexually assaulted her with a cooking stick. It was done with such force that she began to bleed.
Odeki camp stands out in the trial since it is the birthplace of LRA rebel leader Joseph Kony. The prosecution also used video evidence of the victims of the attack on Lokodi camp, which left 45 people dead.
Killed more than 45 civilians, including 12 children. They were shot, stabbed, strangled, burned, and beaten to death. In contrast, not even one government soldier was killed in the attack.
Also key in the submission was the attack on Aboke, in which 28 people were killed and homes burnt to ashes. Prosecution used the testimonies from the witnesses and intercepted communications to make their arguments.
Occasionally, they fell along the way, and that resulted in beatings, the butt of a gun, or with a panga, a machete. Other abductees were not so fortunate. During the march through the bush, P286 saw an elderly female abductee being beaten because she couldn't walk anymore.
Prosecution, however, requested that their submission on sexual offences proceed in camera due to the sensitivity of the matter. By close of day Friday, the prosecution had finalized their submission. On Monday, voices of the over 1,400 victims will be heard as their lawyers make their submissions. Dominic Ongwen's lawyers will air their arguments on Tuesday next week, ahead of the final submission from all the legal quarters on Wednesday. The judges will then take 60 days to make a verdict whether the case should proceed for trial. Solomon Serwanja, KTN News, Kampala, Uganda.
And still on matters in Uganda, small-scale farmers from Iganga in Uganda will be using new food storage methods thanks to a UN World Food Programme that introduced more economical post-harvest methods. And as Ashley Mazuri reports, Merab Nabirie, a small-scale farmer in Iganga, tells us more about that process.
She starts off by laying out the maize grain on a large trampoline to dry. Mirab Nabirye, one of the many small-scale farmers in Uganda, then tests the amount of moisture in the grain by conducting a bottle salt test. She fills seeds into a glass bottle and adds 2 teaspoons of salt. The mixture is shaken vigorously for 60 seconds and left under the sun. After 15 minutes, she inspects the bottle, and if there are wet lumps of salt formed on the walls, the grains are not dry enough for storage. Today, the grain is dry. She stores it in an airtight silo.
Before we were given this knowledge, our farming was not very profitable. We would harvest sporadically and dry our produce on bare soil because we did not have tarpaulins. It cost us a lot of yield. We shared it with rats and all sorts of insects. But since we learned these methods, there has been a difference.
Nabirye is one of the lucky farmers in the post-harvest loss minimization program implemented and funded by UN's World Food Programme. The program trains local farmers on how to store and handle their farm produce through lessons on the proper use of the hermetic storage bags and metals and plastic silos. Over 16,000 farmers have benefited from the program and can now buy necessary equipment from WFP at subsidized price. According to Brett Ryson, the head Global Post-Harvest Knowledge and Operations Center running the program, East Africa's drastic reduction in aflatoxins comes as an added benefit when using the airtight silos.
The most substantial benefit that the airtight or hermetic silos have for farmers here in East Africa is the drastic reduction in aflatoxins, a naturally occurring mold that occurs all over the ground, but can be completely prevented with the use of drying tarps and the hermetic storage silos.
Most of Uganda's subsistence farmers depending on seasonal rain patterns and the use of traditional farming and harvesting methods that often result in greater losses. Adapting new strategies and technologies will decrease food waste and improve the livelihoods of farming communities. Ashley Mazuri, KTN News.
Uganda's expanding middle class is giving rise to a coffee drinking culture that has seen urban coffee houses grow in the country. Uganda grows some of the world's best coffee but consumes just about 3%. Most is exported to the European Union and the United States, among other countries.
Uganda recently held its 9th Barista Championship, an annual contest meant to promote the country's coffee and unveil the brewer with the best coffee making skills. 16 people took part in the championship, which required them to prepare espressos, cappuccinos and original beverages for 4 judges within 15 minutes. At barista contests, judges often look for a thick, elastic espresso, a cappuccino topped with high-caliber foam texture, and a unique coffee invention to please the eyes and taste buds. In the end, Dennis Agaba won the 2015 title. A new culture formed around coffee drinking has seen various chains open cafes in Uganda as well as Kenya, Nigeria and Rwanda as the shops become popular meeting venues for a growing middle class.
Appreciate coffee in a way I never thought possible. You've got different coffee beans, that's what I've come to discover, and the creativity from the contestants. It's not just the normal coffee whereby you just go get coffee beans and just drink. They have taught me that you can actually mix up the coffees with one of your favorite ingredients and you actually get something that you actually really love.
Uganda is a small consumer of coffee. We export a lot of coffee, but we consume little coffee. So this is one of the activities we do to actually encourage the consumption of coffee in Uganda. Because I think Uganda consumes only about 2% of what they produce. So we want actually Uganda to become the first consumers of the coffee that they produce.
Despite growing some of the best wild coffee, consumption remains low as most of clit or beans for espressos, while Africans get a fraction of the profits. Lynn Washira, KTN News.
Meanwhile, half the population of the Central African Republic, that's nearly 2.5 million people, faces hunger. The UN World Food Programme says the number has doubled in the past year as conflict and insecurity have led to limited access to and availability of food.
2.5 million people in the Central African Republic, half the population, have too little to eat because of conflict and insecurity, and the number has doubled in the past year. The former French colony, a major Christian nation, descended into turmoil in early 2013 when mainly Muslim Seleka rebels seized power, provoking reprisals by Christian militia fighters.
WFP is extremely concerned about the food security situation that's worsening in Central African Republic. 1 out of 2 people in Central African Republic don't have enough food to eat and don't know where the next meal is coming from. The people most affected are the returnees and the hundreds and thousands of people that remain internally displaced inside Central African Republic. WFP is doing everything it can to respond to this alarming situation, but it needs support.
Almost 500,000 people fled their homes and remain displaced within the country, while more than 450,000 have fled to neighboring countries, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA.
We were chased away from there and we came here to St. Suver. Since the 26th of September, we have been here for the past 4 months. We have a lot of problems. We have a lot of worries, as I have a lot of children and no one to help me. My husband disappeared.
1 in 6 Central Africans are struggling with extreme food insecurity, meaning having to sell their possessions just to get by. More than 1 in 3 do not know where their next meal is coming from.
I suffer when it comes to food. Do you see how I'm doing? I suffer. I have just gone to the hospital, but since I have no money, I came back. I go to bed hungry.
WFP said it was providing food and nutritional support through food distributions, cash transfers, school meals and other activities. And in December, it provided food for nearly 400,000 people. The agency said its operations were only 45% funded, and it needed $41 million to meet urgent needs through the end of June in Central African Republic and those of its neighbors hosting Central African refugees. Lilian Odera, KTN News.
We've come to the close of the show, but not before leaving you with my final thoughts on the show today. Now, Kenya's National Transport Safety Authority has launched yet another crackdown on the matatu sector in Kenya. It would seem like the umpteenth time this is being done, with the outcome being fairly predictable. Compliance for the next week or so, and then back to the usual mayhem on our roads. Attempts have been made to restore sanity to this industry, not just in Kenya, but throughout the region, with the daladalas in Tanzania and the taxis in Uganda. The motorbike sector is also one that is booming across the region. Now, the basic idea has been to restore human dignity for those using public transport. What is clear, however, is that we don't seem to find a lasting solution. This could be because we allow an informal sector to thrive unregulated until it becomes such an integral part of our lives, and then we start to use words such as crackdown in a bid to streamline them. Our approach is, in a sense, not regulation, but enforcement. Our mentality and approach may just be the weak link. We use terms like menace and uncouth, rogue. This industry, we must remember, supports many who would otherwise be jobless. It provides opportunities for entrepreneurship for young East Africans, from the mechanics who service the vehicles to the electricians, the creative young minds that pimp the rides. So perhaps rather than a clump down, how about a more collaborative approach to ensure that it is a win-win for everyone? We'll leave you with those thoughts tonight on Bottomline East Africa. Of course, you will get more news on that on KTN News here, where you get the whole story, the focus of that in Kenya as that crackdown continues, we're told, until sanity will be restored. Thank you so much for watching Bottomline East Africa tonight. Good night, East Africa, from the KTN News Center in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole.